her a go, Stephanie.
All right. We know that you have been very anxious to hear about our plans for operations this year, and we're excited that we were finally approved with our plans through the state and can share lots of details with you. So if you have not seen the email communication or gone to the website, New Paltz website, please do so, because there's lots of details offered there in our FAQ under New Paltz Forward for the fall semester. So I'm the Vice President for Student Affairs, Stephanie Blaisdell, and I'd like to introduce the rest of our panel. This is our Associate Vice President for Student Affairs, Linda Eaton. Linda, you want to wave? Dr. Dan Friedman is our Dean of the School of Science and Engineering. Robin Cohen-Laval is our Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students. Michelle Halstead, I should have checked your title beforehand, Michelle. She's the Vice President for Business and Finance. Close enough, okay. And Karina Karachi is our Director of Residence Life. So between this team, we think that we can answer many of your questions that we know that you have. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Dan Friedman.
Thank you, Stephanie. I bring you greetings on behalf of Dr. Barbara Lyman, our Interim Provost and Vice President of Academic Affairs. She is away this week. I'm Dean of the School of Science and Engineering. I've been at SUNY New Paltz as faculty and administrator for 20 years, and this is a challenging time, certainly, but there's a lot of things that can go really well in the fall that are going to seem very normal. All the faculty are working very hard to prepare the standard outstanding educational experience that we have provided to New Paltz students for a very long time. Some of those courses are going to be online. We're working very hard to make the courses that have to be done in person, like labs and studios, run the way that they normally run with things that we need to do to keep them safe. The only thing I'll say is that, there's a lot of things you can't do with COVID-19, but the life of the mind is still there. And all the things that we can do in academics can still be done with this virus running around. A lot of that is some things that are a little bit harder, like having the interesting conversations with other students and with faculty are going to be a little tougher. But we have all these electronic means of communication now that really make that possible, and we will bring every one of them to bear to make sure you have an outstanding educational experience.
Thank you. Michelle?
Hi, I'm Michelle Halstead. I'm the Vice President for Administration and Finance. I've been at the college for 30 years, so probably longer than most of our new students and returning students have been on this earth. So I have a lot of experience, and this is, like Dan said, totally new to all of us. We've been through some challenging times, but this takes the cake. My areas, just so you're familiar with what my division handles, my areas include facilities, IT, food service, the business offices such as procurement and accounts payable and payroll, and the Office of Emergency Management and Environmental Health and Safety. So as you might imagine, we're all working really hard to try to re-envision ourselves and get the campus back up and running. So today I can answer any questions that you have about PPE, which is a new term that everybody knows now, is personal protective equipment, cleaning. I can also speak to money matters and billing, even though student accounts and financial aid don't report to me. I work very closely with them. Can also speak a little bit to the CARES Act, because I know that's a big question that's on everybody's mind. And food service, of course, what that's going to look like as we move through the pandemic response.
Great. So I invite you all, as you listen to some of the details of our plan, to please submit questions in the comments sections as you're watching on Facebook. And we will get to them, as many of them as we can. All right, Robin?
Hello, I'm Robin Cohn-Lavelle. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs and Dean of Students. And my role is that I oversee a whole cluster of offices to serve students in terms of their well-being on campus, to serve them as the whole person, outside the classroom, inside the classroom. That includes the Student Health Service, the Psychological Counseling Center, the Disability Resource Center, and other types of community expectations on campus. So we have a great team of people who really care and are here to help. And we're putting as many proactive things in place to support your education and your socialization, as well as your emotional health in dealing with this time away. As we've always said about New Paltz, New Paltz cares about you. You're not just a number, you're a person here, and we care about you as a whole person. So I'm happy to answer questions about the Student Health Service and some of the precautions we're taking and the services that are available for any of those offices.
Karina.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Director of Residence Life, and I've been on SUNY Paltz campus for about 21 years now, acting in this role and others within Residence Life. We're very excited for you all to come back to campus. We really do miss having you all here. We have been working very hard and planning how you can be here and be here safely, and taking all the precautions needed so we can have programming virtually. Our staff is very talented now in doing Zoom programming and meetings and WebExes, so we'll be able to social distance and still have you feel like you're part of this community. So we hope to have you back, and we are here for you. We'll do everything we can, to help you through this time together.
We know first and foremost on your mind is health and safety. And I don't want to go through all the details, but I do want to respond to our first question, which is how do we keep students safe this fall when we are coming back? So briefly, returning students are going to need to quarantine for 7 days prior to coming to campus. And that is a direct guidance from the state. For our new students, first year and transfer students who are living on campus, you'll come back and you will quarantine here for 7 days before classes start. So move-in for new students is the 16th and 17th of August, and that will give you a week to enjoy our orientation 2 and welcome back activities. Continuing students will join later in that week, but you will be here on campus during that time. 2 weeks prior to coming to campus, you'll start doing a health screening, which is a self-report checklist of COVID symptoms or any exposure. And if you report any positive symptoms or exposure, you'll get an automatic response on what to do, which is essentially we will encourage you to get tested, we will encourage you to quarantine, and we will also ask that you contact the Student Health Center. The Student Health Center is really our hub for monitoring and taking care of student health. So once you come onto campus, you're going to continue to, or come back to New Paltz, you're going to continue to do that health screening anytime you are on campus. So any day that you're coming to campus, if you're a commuter student, or anytime you leave the residence hall, if you are a residential student. The health screening is really intended to remind you of what the symptoms for COVID are, to make sure that you're taking your temperature each day, really monitoring your body, and you will be encouraged to stay away from campus or in your room if you have any symptoms at all. And Student Health will monitor you and walk through that process with you. Of course, we know that you can be asymptomatic and be contagious. We are going to do social distancing masks, wearing masks indoors, and anytime you can't distance outdoors is going to be enforced. Our residential students will get a housing addendum or a housing license that explains exactly what our expectations are for you in the house, in the residential facilities. And that does include, we are not allowing any visitors into residence halls other than those students who live in that particular hall. So that will be something that's very different. Karina can talk a little bit more about what move-in will look like, but we do want to go ahead and get to some other specific questions. Again, I really encourage you to look at our FAQ. A lot of these details are spelled out there. Is there any information we need to supply to Student Health Service? Not at this time, other than the regular vaccination records.
The next question, Stephanie, and I'll read them for those who can't see the chats on Facebook. Are students who reside in campus permitted to visit friends who live off campus? If I'm reading it correctly, it looks like they are not permitted to visit friends in other residence halls. So we were wondering how this might be handled.
Yeah, and just to clarify, it's not that you're not able to visit other friends who are living in other residence halls. It's just that you can't enter those residence halls. So we're really trying to keep the residence halls specific to the people who are living in them. But you can certainly visit with friends from those halls outside. That's our most preferred area. And in common spaces on the campus, so long as you are observing social distancing. So yes, we do expect that off-campus students and on-campus students are going to be interacting, but we expect that that will happen in ways that are consistent with the public health policy.
The next question is for Dan. Will most of the classes be live in a classroom? Otherwise, why would we want to pay for room and board if a student could live at home and do online classes? You're on mute, Dan.
Sorry about that. Excellent question. We're estimating about a quarter, 25% of the classes will be live, plus a large number of the labs and studios and other things like that will also be done in person. It is possible that there are areas in the college where you could construct a schedule that is entirely online. We are prioritizing courses for first-year students to be seated so that students who are new to the campus will have as much face-to-face experience with faculty and other students as possible. As we go through the registration process through this month, students will be able to get a sense of how much of their schedule will be online, and then be able to adjust accordingly.
Thank you, Dan. Next question is pretty much for me. Will room and board be less because things are not the way that they should be? We haven't billed yet, and we haven't actually decided on all of our fees. The one thing that has been decided is food service. We are not increasing food service for next year, and the reason for that is, we are sensitive to student fees, but we're bringing students back a little earlier. We're keeping students on campus throughout Labor Day weekend and not having a fall break. So the students' experience on campus or their time on campus is probably going to be very similar to a normal semester. So we're taking all of those facts into consideration as we look at the bills. Another part of the bill, of course, is tuition. Tuition is not, the setting of tuition is not under our purview, so we are waiting for guidance from system administration on that, as well as for some other fees. Our billing will likely be delayed, I would say, at least until late July, early August. The next question. There isn't much clarification on housing for people that aren't first-year students, international students, students with housing situations that prevent them from academic success, or students in programs with heavy studio or lab involvement are prioritized. Is housing guaranteed for returning students who do not fit into those groups?
Hi. So right now we're trying to manage how many students choose to cancel their housing for fall semester. Shortly, every student will get an email from Residence Life explaining what they need to do to cancel their housing for the fall if they wish to. Once they do that, we will know how many students. That deadline now is pushed back to July 15th. So once that number, and we have students who are choosing not to stay on campus, we will then manage those groups based on those priorities. And our hope is that we could accommodate any student who wants to stay for the fall semester. So that's our hope. You need to give us some time to manage those numbers and to get those students who opt out of not wanting to be on campus for the fall semester.
Did you want to add, Stephanie?
I was just going to mention that the housing deposit deadline has been pushed back to July 15th to give time to settle. And then I was just going to ask Robin to take this next question. My daughter has asthma, and we are very concerned about her going back.
So the Student Health Service and the Disability Resource Center will work with your student any semester, returning or new students, about their medical needs. Obviously, if you feel your student is in a high-risk group and they have concerns, they may want to consult with your physician. They can also speak to the director of the Student Health Service here about the pros and cons in terms of just the next few months and what that entails. We don't want any student to feel they should take all their courses online if they want to be here, but they need to take their health history into account when making those personal decisions. Again, it's about all of us, we being careful, not just about one person, but if everybody is wearing masks and people are following the guidelines, students, hopefully will be as safe as they feel in any community, more so hopefully. However, that's a personal decision, and I really always refer people to their family physician. Dr. Ordway would be happy if you want to write to the Student Health Service to consult with your student online as well. And as well as another bounce off question to this one, can they leave campus to get allergy shots, was another question I saw. Of course, if it's an essential need for them to make a medical appointment, that is a reasonable reason to leave, to go into town to get allergy shots. But again, I still think that's a medical question that's best answered by your family physician and Dr. Ordway.
These next series of questions are for Karina. Can you see them okay, Karina? You're on mute.
Yep, they're coming so fast. Sorry.
Would you like me to pitch them at you?
Yeah, the one question about spring semester. So if you choose not to return back to campus for the fall, we will ask you to let us know somewhere in the middle of November if you want to come back for the spring semester. We'll send an email out. You just need to fill out an application, send that back to us, and we'll do the best we can to get you onto campus for spring semester. Depending on what is going on in the world. So, but you can apply, and we will have rooms available for the spring semester.
And the second part of that question is about financial aid. None of us are a financial aid expert, so I'm going to kick this can down the road a little bit and give you an email address to which you can address your questions. So we have a general email on campus called COVID-19 questions@newpaltz.edu. So that's COVID, the number 19, questions, no spaces, at newpaltz.edu. If you want to send all of your financial aid questions there, we have people who are poised to answer your questions as soon as possible.
Did you have a comment?
I can answer the question about suites. So as you are aware, all of our residence halls will be double occupancy. We will be housing students in our suite style buildings. Each room in the suite will only have 2 students, and the suites will operate as they always do. And we would hope that students who, in particular, who live in suites will follow the good practice of cleaning their in-suite bathroom facilities, and will be provided with the cleaning materials to be able to do that. And I think that's it with suites, right, Karina?
Yes, there was a lot of concern that students thought that if there was more than 2 people per unit, that wasn't being allowed. But it's 2 students per room. And if you are in an 8-person suite, 8 people will live in that suite, 2 per room.
And the next question is, I know that move-in days will be scattered for returning students. What happens if you're unavailable for the day you're assigned? Can you switch dates with someone else?
You don't necessarily have to switch dates with someone else. What we'll do is we are going to roll out in the next day our plan for drop opportunities for both returning students and first-year students to drop off belongings. When they drop off belongings, they will be allowed to have people to help them bring belongings to the building. That we set up a plan where everything's going to be separated and scattered, so we wouldn't have a lot of students per building. If we assign you a spot that you cannot drop off in, you can always come during another time. So we'll have 2 separate times that you can come and drop off belongings, and then another time for you to kind of move in for the semester later in August. So all that will be coming in an email. There'll be certain times you can drop off, certain times that you can come back to stay. And if you can't make those times, we will accommodate you in a different way, but you'd have to let us know that in the email.
Linda, will students be able to join clubs? I'm concerned that they will be going to class and then only going back to the dorm.
Yeah, so I also saw a question in here in regards to first-year students and interaction that I will address as well. So the orientation staff is currently working very hard, as you may be aware, if you are a first-year student, to do an online orientation program throughout the summer. During the latter half of July, there will be a lot more opportunities for engagement. We've hired a lot more students to be virtual orientation leaders who will lead students in a lot of interactive sessions. A lot of these sessions will outline all the opportunities that are available on campus, from the Student Association, clubs and organizations, residence hall programs, living learning communities in the residence halls. Obviously, there may be some opportunity for some face-to-face interaction following the policies and procedures that are outlined in regards to COVID, with the number of students who can do that and wearing masks and socially distancing. However, there will be a lot of opportunities for programs and activities that are virtual, and those will be coming out of the residence halls, out of the Student Association, and a lot of our clubs and organizations will begin to get very creative about how they're going to engage students throughout the semester in the normal activities that they would do throughout the semester.
So as an addition to that, a question is, how will you get freshmen involved in the community if live events are limited and everyone is meeting for the first time? Will their first experience be everyone in masks? And can they gather at all in a casual level? So we, as Linda said, we are offering a number of our gatherings and events remotely. Yes, absolutely. Students will have an opportunity to gather in at a casual level, so long as they adhere to the state guidelines of practicing social distancing, wearing masks, and keeping gatherings to whatever the limit is at the current time. We are also considering that residence hall floors or portions of floors are your family unit. So students are going to be able to do more live interaction with the people in their floors that are living in the residence halls. Dan, this one is for you. How does the ADA work? What if I have medical issues? Will I be able to do classes online?
There will be a lot of choice for classes online, and again, consulting with your own doctor to see what's the most advisable. But if you do have a medical condition that would put you at risk for COVID-19, I think that option will be there. It's going to be important to look at a particular major, because certain majors will work better online, where the majority of the courses will be available. We are doing our best to have areas like the sciences have live labs. We're still working on whether we'll be able to offer an online options of those. But the whole point of offering those labs and studios live is because that's the best way to teach them. But you need to look at a particular major, and so when you get a chance to talk to the folks in the advising office about putting together your schedule for the fall, make sure you ask them about that, because it depending on different areas, it would certainly be possible.
Michelle, please elaborate on the food service and address what is available for special diets since the options are diminished.
We have done a lot to expand our food offerings in the last few years. Obviously, everything's going to be a little bit challenging this year with much of our food service planned to start at least as to-go options. But we have a number of gluten-free, dairy-free, vegan, vegetarian options on campus. And what I would encourage you to do if you or your student has a special dietary need is to make friends with our friend Kevin Dicey, who is the general manager of Sodexo, the food service company that serves our campus. The students come up to Kevin all the time, tell him exactly what they need, what they like, and he tries his best to accommodate them. So the first thing I would do is, as a student, is contact Kevin and tell him how you like your pizza.
Dan, when will you announce what specific classes will be online versus in person?
We're working on that right now. We need to get it up very soon because students are starting to go through the advising and registration process. I'd say we need to have all of that done within a couple of weeks. So by the middle of July, most of what's on the schedule should indicate whether it's going to be online or seated.
If I only have a few classes in person, can I change to a commuter? You can. As Karina said, we are looking for students who don't want to be in the residence halls and can either take their classes online or commute if you're within a 25-mile radius of campus. So that's one of the reasons we pushed the deposit deadline out to July 15th in hopes that you'll have all the information that you need to make that decision. Dan, if class size is reduced to allow for social distancing, will students be unenrolled in their classes?
No, we're not reducing any class sizes except in a few special cases. We're setting up our classrooms so that everyone is socially distant, physically distant from the other students, so at least 6 feet apart. What that means is that we have a limited number of classes that can even hold an average class size of 25 students. So anything that's much larger than that has to go online. There's a few places where we're going to be reducing class size, but we will add extra sections. We've worked very, very hard over the years to make sure everyone who needs a course gets into what what they need to take, and we're not going to change that now.
Is the health screening online that students fill out daily? Yes, it is. And I should also mention that faculty and staff also have to fill out the health screening when we are on campus as well. How are you planning on making sure that guidelines are followed? How do students use the bathroom? Robin, this sounds like a good question for you.
I think the main rule of thumb in the world right now is that anywhere we are, we should wear a mask. It's what is going to keep us and everybody else well. And so when students leave their room, they're going to put on a mask and go to the restroom and anything they may do outside of a residence hall room. When they're outside the building, as Dr. Blaisdell indicated, as long as they're socially distanced at least 6 feet, they should always have a mask on, prepared to wear it. But we are going to, have a compassionate education about introducing students to all the reasons that we are following these state mandates, and they will get specific guidelines when they move into the residence halls. And they will also be getting a pledge that they understand about what's expected behavior, what the community standards are for us all working together to keep ourselves and other people safe. So I think the rule of thumb is to wear the mask, and then there will be a conversation or a warning. And depending on students' repeated behavior, they may risk forfeiting their privilege of living in the residence hall if they're not complying. I'm from the area of enforcing the rules, so as positive as I'm trying to be, I'm saying we take these things seriously for your well-being. And so we are going to you would want us to keep everyone safe. So we are going to enforce the regulations so that students respect the mask wearing rules.
So I'm going to take this next one because it's a toughie. Will students be allowed to go home on weekends? So we are really asking that students not travel, even locally, if there is an active outbreak in your area. As a parent, this really tugs at my heartstrings. I have a son who just finished his sophomore year in college. I haven't seen him since February. He has been basically learning remotely, but in off-campus housing, and because traveling for him has been would be difficult, and coming home brings whatever he might experience mildly to us, who might experience it more significantly. It's just a choice that we have made as a family, that we're safer enjoying each other's company over Zoom, which we have done frequently. We've played a lot of Jackbox games, if you're familiar with that, and even some poker online, which has been fun. I know that if you're a parent of an incoming first-year student, and this is your first child to leave college, hearing that you might not see them until Thanksgiving may be very difficult. We are not policing who is going where, but we are asking that as you come to campus, that you really put the we before me and help us protect our community. And the more that we interact with a wider group of people, the more that we are likely to bring COVID to our campus. And if we have an outbreak that we aren't able to contain, that's going to be the end of our in-person experience together. We know what that was like in the spring. We do not want to experience that again. So we are just asking that you really prioritize protecting our community when you come back. How will it be handled if a student begins the semester and becomes infected with COVID-19, but is too sick to do his or her schoolwork? Will the student fail the class or take an incomplete? Dan?
You're muted, Dan.
I'm sorry, Stephanie, could you repeat that question?
Sure. How will it be handled if a student begins the semester and becomes infected with COVID-19, but is too sick to do his or her schoolwork? Will the student fail the class or is taken incomplete?
Actually, that that's going to be less. I mean, we have students who get sick every semester with all the normal college things from colds to mono. That'll actually be generally less of a problem just because we have so many more of our classes online. In general, younger people don't get the really nasty symptoms of COVID. So it's quite likely that someone, while quarantining, could continue their classes. If someone gets a more serious case, we will do all the things that we usually do when someone gets seriously ill during the semester. Incompletes would be a standard option, and we can do other things like that to accommodate students.
Can I just add that if a student who is living in the residence halls does happen to get sick, you will notice on the FAQ that we have held out one of our suite style residence halls for a quarantine space. And if students go to the quarantine space, they will be there for 2 weeks. They will likely, if they are not too ill, as Dan said, will be able to do their courses online. They will be monitored by the health center. Their food will be delivered to them. Their garbage will be picked up, and we are making arrangements to have their laundry done. They will have a micro fridge in their room. So they will be able to quarantine in this room. They will have to grab a few of their belongings out of their permanent residence and move to that room for a couple of weeks. But we are going to try to make that experience as comfortable for them as possible so that they can complete their coursework online, at least for those 2 weeks. Students may opt to go home, but we have held out that building for quarantine space.
Is the online orientation system down? When will the orientation situation be remedied? Linda, do you have an answer for that?
I do. So we've experienced a little bit of a glitch in our online platform. It is being resolved as we speak with the company, and we are hoping to get it up and running. They just have to tweak a little bit of something with the program, and rest assured that that it will be up and running and that students will be able to complete their modules as required to be able to move on to the next phase of the online orientation program.
So, when is fall tuition due?
As I said before, our bills are usually out. They usually went out 2 weeks ago. So for returning students, I'm expecting that we're going to see your bills go out at the end of July, beginning of August. We generally give up to a month for the first installment of your bill, or for it to be paid in full. For those students who won't be registering until later on in August, their bills will be due kind of on a rolling basis after they register. You'll get a notification from student accounts. So at least another probably month before you see your bills.
So I'm trying to interpret what's at the heart of this question. Many people don't know if they want to stay on campus since things are changing. So how will that truly impact how many people still want to remain on campus? I get the sense that maybe what you're asking is campus going to be a ghost town? We fully anticipate we've got 2,900 beds that we will be filling, and that is reduced capacity for us. We fully expect that those 2,900 beds are going to be full. And there's a series of questions here about the timing of the knowing when things are online and the housing deposit. I would encourage you, if you think you want housing and if you're in a priority group, go ahead and request the housing. We believe that the schedule will be finalized by the 15th. If it isn't, we will work with you. If things change and you end up with an online schedule and you don't want housing any longer, we certainly will be working with you on those kinds of decisions.
Stephanie, can I just put in
Yes.
clarification? You don't have to request housing. If you already have housing, you don't have to request it. All you have to do is if you don't want to continue, you have to let us know, hopefully by the 15th of July. And as Vice President Blaisdell said, if you would like, after you find out your courses, if you choose not to live on campus for the fall, it's after July 15th, we will make those accommodations for you.
Dan, I think this is for you. My daughter is a senior and her major requires an internship for graduation that is only offered in the fall. How will this be handled?
We are doing our best to find either continue internships or find alternatives for as many different programs on the campus. That really depends a lot on the particular program. So it would be best for her to get in touch with her advisor or the department chair and find out what particular plans are being made for her program.
Will parents be able to help their incoming students move into their dorms?
Sorry. So, I'm sorry. Well, I didn't get the first part of the question. You cut out.
Will parents be able to help new incoming
Oh, yes.
students move into their dorm?
Great. Yes, thank you. We like I had said earlier that we are going to have a drop-off date and a move-in date. So we have a variety of drop-off dates. We during that time we are going to allow family members to help students move in during that time because we'll have a lot more time and students spread out. So there wouldn't be an opportunity for many students to and their families to kind of interact with each other. So during those drop-off dates, we can have family members help. During the move-in date, we're going to ask that it's only the student that's moving into the residence hall that actually enters the residence hall. So those drop-off dates you'll see once we send out the email later today or tomorrow are going to be late July and very beginning of August. And then you can move in later in August, right before the classes begin, and orientation 2 for first-year students.
How is the quarantine going to work? Do they have to stay in their dorm for 7 days? What about food? We are still looking for further guidance on this. This is some late-breaking information that we just received last week directly from the state. So they will be issuing more guidance to us on exactly what they mean by quarantining on campus. We do anticipate, again, that the floor of a residence hall is sort of like your family habitat. So when you quarantine, you certainly want to keep the rest of your family safe, and yet you are going to interact with them. So while we are, again, looking for the social distancing and mask wearing that we would expect to keep our community safe, we are not going to put them in their dorm rooms and keep them there for 7 days. Food service, all of those details will be worked out, but they will have their needs met while they're here. The FAQ doesn't regard what happens to those who were assigned to triples, just that there will be no triples. So what happens to the students who have been assigned to triples? Because I was assigned to a triple and I'm confused about what happens now. Karina?
Good question. So we will personally be in touch with any student, a group of students who are in a triple right now, and then we will work with you to reassign that third person. So we have that list, and the next week or so, we'll be getting in touch with those students who that applies to. So don't worry, we're going to give you the first chance to go into another space, preferably if it could be near the space that you were in before. And if you want to choose a roommate, we will help you do that as well.
If we have questions that are not answered, is there anyone answering phones during office hours? Yes, absolutely. We're still here. All of our offices are still open. Many of us are working remotely, but we have our office phones forwarded to our homes. We are answering emails. I would encourage you to direct your questions to the appropriate office, or as Michelle mentioned, you can direct it to that COVID-19 questions info@newpaltz.edu email, and we will get the question to where it needs to go. The FAQs on the websites are going to be updated from these questions and from questions that we get, so be sure to check back there frequently. My kids work in town. Will they be able to still work? It sounds like they are not allowed to leave campus. They are allowed to leave campus. We do expect that students are going to still be interacting here in the village. They'll be able to go to the grocery store. They will be able to work, but we expect that they continue to practice good public health policy while they're off campus as well as on campus. Where does the student activity fee go and the gym fee? Michelle, would you like to take that?
Sure. The student activity fee is actually governed by the student leadership. So we have a student body that is elected by, we have students who are elected by the student body, and they govern that student activity fee. And the activity fee is generally parsed out to clubs. There's usually some travel money in there that will probably not be happening this semester. And other fun events that they put on through student association. The other part was athletics. The athletic fee is still a big question. As I spoke before, we're wrestling with what fees will be charged given the new situation and what that's going to look like. One of the things that is still in question is the competition schedule for our intercollegiate athletics. And whether the gymnasium will be allowed to be opened and in what fashion it will be open. So we are still wrestling with that, and we hope to have the fees settled by the middle of July.
Can I just add that this activity fee also funds our student media center. So it would be our student newspaper, the Oracle, our radio station, our FM station, and our TV station, which we are still planning to operate. The director of the Student Media Center is working hard to be able to continue those wonderful opportunities for our students and still being in line with the social distancing and keeping our students safe. But a good chunk of the money does go to those three areas as well, and they will continue to operate during the fall semester.
In regard to the symptom check protocols, what about students with seasonal allergies, which also share similar symptoms to COVID? Will the app prevent them from reporting to campus? Great question. I think one of the many difficult things about COVID is that the symptoms are pretty widespread. It can be anything from nausea to a runny nose, and that looks like a lot of other things. So particularly as flu season starts, that's going to be a real challenge to try to isolate. So no, not necessarily. That's why once the screening kind of alerts us that a student has some symptoms, the student health center is going to work with you or with the student to ensure that they are safe to come to campus. We do strongly encourage you to get flu shots this year for two reasons. One is the less flu that we have, the less symptoms we have to figure out. And also, flu every year already puts a pretty strong demand on our health resources, not just on campus, but our local hospitals and everything else. So please do consider that both your student and the whole family get their flu shot this year. Same with just symptom mitigation in general. But our student health center will be working with that symptom checklist to ensure that we are not keeping students away if they're just having allergies or the cold or everything else is going to be coming back. What PPE is the campus providing? Michelle, you want to take that one?
Sure. Great question. I'm so glad you asked. So again, PPE, it stands for personal protective equipment. The campus is going to be providing at least 2 masks per student. We're also providing masks to our faculty and staff. The initial 2 masks will only last so long. our faculty and staff and our student workers who are working on the front lines, constantly engaging with other people, will be provided masks continuously. However, we do encourage you to bring your own supply of masks. Of course, not everybody enjoys wearing the masks, and some different forms are more comfortable for some people than others. So we do encourage you to bring a plethora of your own masks. As far as cleaning supplies and other things, we are right now trying our best to strategically source an abundance of cleaning supplies. There will be a statement that my office puts out that will reside either on the FAQ or on the website to tell you exactly what we will clean and what the community is responsible for cleaning. So students in your student rooms, that is your residence. We will not go in your residence to clean. So anything that you need to clean inside that residence, you should bring with you just in case. We will try to have extra on board in case you run out, but we don't know that we can source that much. As you know, when you go to the grocery store, it's really difficult to get wipes. It's difficult to get Clorox spray, or even paper towels were out in my store yesterday. So we do encourage you to take care of yourself, as well as the campus is going to try to take special care of you while you're here as well.
Will in-person classes tape their classes due to the likely increase in absences due to symptom reporting or possible illness quarantining? Dan?
Mainly not. We don't have, we have a few classrooms that have lecture capture technology that would make that possible, but not very many. So yeah, that's where we are looking at some different options to try to increase our capacity in that area, because you can obviously see why it would be important. But right now we're not going to have that capability. A lot of faculty, will put their lectures on PowerPoints, and they can we can use our content management system, Blackboard, to be able to distribute information to students who can't make it to the lecture. And there's always the same things that students have always done, which is sharing lecture notes with each other. So this problem might be worse than it usually is, but this is also something that happens on a regular basis. So we'll figure out ways to manage it.
Karina, is the 25-mile radius rule for commuters flexible? We are just outside the radius.
Yes, and I'll answer a couple of questions that came right after that. Yes, we are being flexible with the 25-mile radius. If you would like to commute from home, if you have an in-person class, we are being flexible. Just send over your, the guidelines are on our website to ask for a commuting status from home. Just do that paperwork, get it over to us, and we will approve that. The question, will there be assistance to help students move in? So no, there will not be help outside of your family members to help drop off belongings if you choose to do that. And like I had said earlier, if you had missed it, that if you are moving in on the move-in days and not the drop-off days, you would be the only person allowed in the residence hall on the move-in day. A couple of things that we're doing, and you'll see information that we're going to be sending out to you. We did purchase micro fridges per student unit, so you do not have to bring a microwave or a refrigerator. That will stay in. You don't have to rent it. You don't have to buy one. You don't have to carry one across campus. You will have one in your room when you get there, so that would alleviate big, heavy things to move in that day. And we are encouraging students, because we're ending on November 25th, that you do not bring everything that you own, right? So pack light. You don't need your skis or any heavy jackets. We hope it's still nice and warm in November. But really just pack lightly if you can, because chances are you'll be carrying that stuff yourself. The other thing, November, when we have a move out date, it'll be like a regular move out for the end of the semester. So you can leave your belongings there until you return in the spring, unless you choose not to return in the spring. So move out day in November would be like a regular move out for any semester. yeah, you know, in between semesters. So you can leave all your belongings there for that winter break.
So, Karina, just to clarify, I believe that on the move-in days, as opposed to the drop-off days, which allow families to really take part in moving their student in, on the move-in days, are students allowed one support person?
Right. You know, we're asking that, you know, you would have people bring stuff. You know, you can have people drop you off and help you carry stuff outside. But going into the building on move-in days, we're really asking that it would only be the student, because that'll be a lot more students during those days that are going to be in that residence hall. As you know, the vice president was saying, we certainly want to create an atmosphere in the residence halls, kind of like it is in your own home. You know, you're not wearing masks when you go into the kitchen and see a family member. Same kind of thing is going to happen when you're in your own room. You know, we're hoping that, you know, you have no symptoms and you could just live in a room with a student, another student, without wearing a mask in your own personal space. So that's why we're trying to create a situation where you don't have a lot of people in and out of the residence halls, because we're going to create, you know, like more of like a herd immunity, but that's your home, and wouldn't, you know, require that if you're living in your home. I hope that makes sense and that's clear.
So while we're on that topic, another question is, do we need to send our students with a thermometer? We would strongly advise you to send a few things that you might not think about. One of those is a thermometer. One of those is masks. Send masks that your student feels fits them well. You know, things that they want to wear, you know, make a fashion statement. Also, send some over-the-counter medications, you know, things for, and this is a good idea in any year. But we are going to be providing thermometers for students who don't have them. But we really recommend, this is a great learning opportunity for your student. Make sure that they're leaving with a thermometer and they know how to use it. That's a good tip. Michelle, how often will the buildings that classes take place in and other public spaces on campus be cleaned? Will there be cleaning supplies and hand sanitizer provided to students to help maintain cleanliness?
Yes, one thing I neglected to say earlier is that the campus has also procured a number of Purell stations and other hand sanitizers. So you'll see those throughout the campus in both living spaces and in the academic spaces. All of the buildings will be, their normal cleaning will take place, maybe a little less vacuuming so that we can hit the disinfectant spots. We call them the frequently touched surfaces, things like doorknobs and light switches and handrails. We're going to pay special attention to those areas every day. Classrooms will be cleaned daily. We're trying to work on if we have a limited number of classrooms that are going to be used for on-the-ground teaching, we may actually even be able to hit the classrooms more than once per day, but we're going to have to see what the schedule ends up looking like for that. But yes, all public spaces, all classrooms will be cleaned on a daily basis, disinfected with the proper CDC recommended cleaning supplies. And again, the extra cleaning supplies that we're trying to source, we may have some available, but you know, the quantities are limited. So we strongly urge the community and even our faculty and staff to have their own supplies on hand.
Any news on the CARES Act, when they will be sent out and if approved?
So the CARES Act first round of applications was due, I think, in the middle of last Wednesday or Thursday. So the financial aid office is actively working on reviewing those right now. Once they're reviewed, then they can calculate how much each student can get It's not a perfect science. We wish it were, but this is just the first round. Whatever we do not distribute in this round, there will be a second call for applications, and we urge you to really pay attention to your email because that's where you'll get that information. I don't know. We're hopeful that it will be within the next couple of weeks that you'll start to see checks being processed, but we will likely put a notification out so that you're aware that they're on their way.
What are you doing for commuter students that live with family who are at high risk? So again, we really think that families need to make a decision that is best for you. And we understand that that can be a complicated and a difficult decision. But you do have the opportunity, your student would have the opportunity to have a fully online schedule if that is what they want. And we encourage the student to talk with the advisor. But these are decisions that we can't make for your student. And each family is going to just have to assess the risk that you're willing to undergo. Do you report the number of COVID on campus and how often? Michelle, you want to take that?
Yes, we do. We actually report it daily, both to our faculty, staff, and to our student lists. If students are watching their email while they're on summer vacation, you would notice that we do a daily digest with lots of good information in there. If you're not reading it, I suggest you do. But in that, every day we talk about whether we have a new case. Knock wood, we haven't had one in a while. But we also are required to report that to our local health department.
Linda, is Family Weekend canceled?
I don't think at this point it is canceled. I think the Office of Student Engagement is looking at ways that maybe they can be creative with doing some programming around Family Weekend. Obviously, it will have to be limited in terms of probably online activities because we'll have to conform to safety regulations, but I wouldn't count it out 100% at this point. It will look very different than it has in the past, where everybody comes to campus and interacts with one another, because obviously that's just not possible. So again, I wouldn't count it out, and I think there may be some creativity around that event.
How will Greek life function?
So Greek life, in terms of activities and programs, Greek life will have to conform to all of the regulated programming and activities and pre-approval. In terms of doing any kind of rush that they would do, our Department of Student Engagement, they are working with our national offices to come up with a plan about how they can do that virtually. You all know that first-year students cannot pledge until the spring semester anyways. Transfers can pledge during the fall semester. So once again, working with national offices to be creative around recruitment.
Michelle, will the same number of work-study jobs be available?
Yes, work study is not dependent on the campus budget. It is a federal program. So to the extent that we had work study jobs in the past, we will have them this semester.
Karina, some dorms only have one communal kitchen for the entire building. How will that be handled?
Sure. Actually, all the residence halls only have one, for the most part, one kitchen. We will have a sign-up sheet in the RA offices, and we would have students sign in and only have, a certain amount of students per kitchen area using it. We give them clean products to clean right after they've used it, and then other students can use it when they're finished. So we will have a process and a system that will explain to every student per hall, and it will depend on the hall. Some are bigger than others to allow for more social distancing, but we will have a schedule for residence hall to help accommodate students to use those facilities.
Will there be any intercollegiate sports scheduled? And this question is particularly about the winter, but I will just say that we are still making decisions about the fall and winter in terms of intercollegiate sports. As you can imagine, these are activities that we're looking at closely, not only for the contact that students would have with teammates on and off the field, but currently gyms are closed. There's transportation concerns about getting to contests, even though SUNY, generally our conference, has divided the conference into sections to limit travel. There's still a lot of details to be thought through about how to make any travel safe in mass here. So we are working through that, and no final decision has been made for either fall or winter. We are following NCAA guidelines and taking the lead from our conference on that. Karina, we need to explain about the microfridges, and can you also repeat the drop-off and move-in days? And I think on that note, we will wrap up with any final thoughts that people want to share after that.
Sure. Great. Yes, the microfridges, we were able to contract with a company that provides actually the microfridges now. We, as a college, purchased and have like a 7-year contract with the microfridge company. Every single room will have a microfridge when you get there. So you do not have to bring one. We're actually going to require that you do not bring your own microfridge to campus. So everyone will have one in their unit. They don't have to rent one, they don't have to buy one. It'll be one per unit when they arrive. We did not actually say the drop-off dates. I couldn't read them, but they will be in an email going out today or tomorrow to all students. So basically, we're saying Sunday, July 26th. These are for returning students only, because we understand that our first-year students will not have their housing assignments until a couple of days later. July 27th, Monday, July 27th, Wednesday, July 29th, and Thursday, July 30th. We'll be very specific in the email as to what buildings could drop off. And the drop-off will actually be in the residence hall that you will be residing in. So you go directly to the room that you are going to be living in, drop off your belongings, and with help from family members, and then you would leave that area. You can't stay the night. We ask if you don't, decorate too much. You'll have that opportunity to go do that in August. And then our first year transfer students drop off only will be in August 2nd, August 3rd, and August 4th. And so, like I said, you will get this all in email to your, Hawkmail accounts. So please check that, as we're all saying, frequently to see all updates for information that we want to provide to you.
Dates, Karina?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Repeat the move-in dates as well.
Sure. Sorry. The move-in dates for first year students will be August 16th, kind of like to the 18th. And then our returners can move in August 20th to the 23rd. And our first day of classes will be August 24th.
Okay.
Stephanie, if I could just add that everyone, it's really important every year, not just this year, that your student health report is completed, and that form is on the Student Health Service website, because whether students are living in the residence halls, living locally off campus, or commuting, it's important that we have your health history in order to help you if you ever need help. So you can get those right on the Student Health Service website.
Great. Any other final comments from anyone?
Just a reminder that there is a lot of information that we send out on a daily basis through our daily digest from the Office of Communications and Marketing. There's a lot of wonderful things in there, a lot of neat stuff in there, and a lot of really important things in there. So I suggest that you at least touch on it a couple of times a week and see what we've got in there, as well as paying attention to your Hawk Mail. That is our official communication. So you need to read that almost on a daily basis. And if we didn't get to your question today, there was one question. The Starbucks will be open. How it's open, whether you can sit and hang out in it is a question, but we will have Starbucks there, and we will have Starbucks in the Student Union building this year, in a We Proudly Brew site. So be patient. We're working really, really hard, meeting daily for hours and hours, trying to come up with ways to keep you safe, provide you the excellent education that you've had, or want to have if you're a new student. And really our primary concern is your safety. Reach out to the COVID-19 questions at newpaltz.edu if we didn't get to your question today, and we'll happily answer you.
Anything to add, Dan?
Yeah, I'm a scientist, and so I've watched how this has developed since it started on the basis of science. We knew very little back in February and March. And as time goes on, we have developed a better and better understanding of how the COVID-19 virus behaves. And everything that we're doing to try to keep the students and faculty and staff safe is based on the latest understanding of how the virus behaves. And I think we can all take a lot of pride in how New York has responded to this, in being able to drop the levels of the virus down to very low levels right now. And we've done it by three basic things, which is physical distancing, wearing a mask, and washing your hands. There's three really basic, simple things that can really avoid catching COVID-19. It's not that hard to do it, but it requires a considerable amount of discipline. And I think, from we're capable of making this work in the fall, as long as everyone follows those three simple rules.
And not touching your face, which I have a really hard time not doing. I've been doing this the whole WebEx, so I need to work on that. But yes, we are so looking forward to having our students back. We have missed them terribly. So we want you to come back. We want you to be safe. We know we had hundreds of questions in the comments. We didn't get to all of them, but we are going to be updating our FAQ, taking all those questions into account. So please, again, visit the FAQ on the website. And like Michelle said, read your emails and go Hawks. Thanks.